They call me the goddess, the queen of kings, the last Pharaoh of Egypt. I possess enough gold to pave the bed of the Nile, and enough jewels to outshine the stars above Alexandria. But the greatest treasure I ever found did not come from a mine, nor was it seized in a conquest. It was hidden beneath the dirt and rags of a starving child on the streets of my own city. Listen closely, my friends, for I am about to tell you the impossible truth of how I looked into the eyes of a beggar boy and found the soul of my father, the great king, returned to me. I am Cleopatra, and if you are listening to my voice, you must picture me as I truly am. Do not imagine me merely as a statue of cold marble. Imagine me sitting upon my terrace in the royal district of Alexandria, the Mediterranean breeze playing with the sheer silk of my robes woven with threads of pure gold that shimmer like liquid fire in the sunset. My fingers are heavy with rings of emerald and ruby, gems so large they would feed a family for a generation. I am surrounded by the scent of blue lotus and roasted meats, the aroma of a wealth so vast it is almost suffocating. I have always loved the gold. I make no apology for it. Gold is the skin of the gods, the only thing in this mortal world that does not decay, that does not lie, that does not betray. And betrayal, my dears, is a currency more common than copper in my court. This story, I must tell you, is one of the heart, a secret I have kept guarded behind walls of limestone and legions of soldiers. It is a story about the day the impossible happened. It involves a boy, a simple, nameless creature of the streets, a child who possessed nothing but the dusty tunic on his back. And it involved the man I loved most in this world, my father, Ptolemy Auletes, the flute player, who died leaving me a kingdom of vultures. You see, being a queen is a lonely existence. I am a woman of immense intellect. I speak 9 languages. I can debate philosophy with the scholars of the library and strategy with Roman generals. I carry myself with the strength of Isis, my head held high, my gaze steady. I am secure in my power. When I walk into the throne room, the floor trembles, not from my footsteps, but from the weight of the destiny I carry. I am strong, yes, but beneath the layers of kohl eyeliner and the heavy ceremonial wigs, I am a woman who loves deeply. I am a mother to my people. I feel their hunger, I feel their pain, and I wish to wrap them in my prosperity. My generosity is not a political tactic. It is the overflow of a heart that beats for Egypt. But in the year this story takes place, my heart was heavy with dread. A shadow had fallen over my palace. There was a plot, a serpentine scheme winding its way through my own council. My most trusted adviser, a man named Harkhuf, remember that name, Harkhuf. He was a man who wore humility like a mask. He was the High Steward of the Treasury, a man whose hands were always stained with ink from counting my gold. He smiled with his mouth, but his eyes were as cold as the deep desert night. He was planning to steal my throne, to frame me for treason against my own blood, and to install a puppet he could control. I was blind to it. I was distracted by the sheer maintenance of my empire, by the endless flowing of taxes, the grain shipments, the mountains of gold coins arriving from the south. I was drowning in luxury, unaware that the water was rising to choke me. And then I met the boy. He was no one, a speck of dust, but he knew things. He knew melodies that had been buried in a tomb for years. He knew the layout of secret passages that only one other person in history had known. And when he looked at me, oh, when he looked at me with those dark, ancient eyes, I did not see a child. I felt a chill run down my spine that was both terrifying and warm. I saw the distinct, unmistakable gaze of my father. It sounds like madness, doesn't it, that the great Cleopatra, the richest woman in the world, would bow down before a beggar urchin. But the gods work in mysterious ways. This boy, this poor, fragile vessel, held the key to saving my life. He held the secret that would expose Harkhuf's treachery. But we were running out of time. The eclipse was coming, the day Harkhuf planned to strike, to take my crown, my gold, and my life. I had to trust a child with the secrets of the state. I had to risk my entire dynasty on a feeling, a whisper from the afterlife. If I was wrong, I would be known as the mad queen who lost Egypt. If I was right, I would regain the only thing money could never buy, a father's love. Come with me now. Let us walk away from the safety of the balcony. Let me take you down into the gilded halls where the shadows are long, and let me tell you how the Queen of the Nile found salvation in the hands of a ghost. The morning the world changed began with the blinding brilliance of the sun reflecting off the Mediterranean. It is a specific kind of light we have here in Alexandria, sharp and unforgiving, turning the white limestone of my palace into a beacon that can be seen for miles at sea. I awoke in my bedchamber, a room so vast that the ceilings are lost in shadows, painted with the constellations of the night sky in crushed lapis lazuli and silver dust. I remember stretching my limbs across the sheets. They were not linen, for linen is for the merchants and the scribes. I slept on silk imported from the Far East, dyed a purple so deep it cost 10,000 drachmas for a single yard. As I sat up, my handmaidens were already there, silent as ghosts, holding basins of solid gold filled with rosewater. I washed my face, feeling the cool water against skin that had been oiled with almond and frankincense the night before. I looked into the polished silver mirror, a gift from a Roman general, though I forget which one. They all blend together in their ambition. And I saw the face of Egypt. Strong jaw, eyes painted with kohl to ward off the evil eye and the glare of the sun, and the royal uraeus, the golden cobra, waiting on the table to be placed upon my brow. I am a woman of routine, but that morning the air felt heavy, not with heat, but with deceit. While I was choosing between a necklace of heavy amethysts or a collar of hammered gold aimed to mimic the rays of Ra, the heavy cedar doors of my chamber creaked open. It was Harkhuf. Let me describe this man to you so you can hate him as I do. Harkhuf was the High Steward of the royal treasury. He was a tall man, but he walked with a slight stoop, as if the weight of the coins he counted was physically pressing him down toward the underworld. He wore robes of fine linen, pleated perfectly, always in shades of dull beige or brown, trying to appear modest, but I knew better. On his fingers he wore rings of carnelian and obsidian, subtle but priceless. His face was long, his beard oiled into a point, and his eyes were like that of a lizard, unblinking and devoid of warmth. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing low. His voice was like dry leaves scraping together. "The manifest for the grain shipment to Rome is ready for your seal, and the accounts for the temple renovations." He held out a scroll. I stood, my golden sandals clicking on the marble floor. I was wearing a tunic of sheer white silk, cinched with a belt of gold links, each link shaped like a scarab beetle. I took the scroll. "You are early, Harkhuf," I said, unrolling the papyrus. My eyes scanned the Greek script. I am not like my ancestors who only spoke Greek. I learned the tongue of the Egyptians, the tongue of the Syrians, the Medes. I read everything. These numbers, the allocation for the Temple of Isis seems low, and the tax revenue from the Delta is short by 3 talents of gold. A talent of gold, my friends, is a heavy thing. To lose 3 is not a mistake, it is a fortune. Harkhuf did not flinch. He rubbed his hands together. "The harvest was difficult, my queen. The peasants are holding back. We may need to increase the pressure, send the soldiers to the villages." I looked at him sharply. "I will not starve my people to fill a room that is already overflowing. We have reserves. Use the gold from the southern mines to cover the deficit." "As you wish," he said, a little too quickly. "But, Majesty, the southern gold, there have been delays, bandits." I felt a prickle on the back of my neck. Bandits? In the best guarded province of my empire? Harkhuf was lying. I could smell the lie on him, sour and metallic, but I could not prove it, not yet. This was the macro challenge of my life. My own administration was rotting from the inside. Harkhuf was siphoning the wealth of the Ptolemies, likely to fund a mercenary army to unseat me. He thought I was just a woman who liked pretty dresses and banquets. He did not know that I counted every coin in my mind. "I will inspect the treasury myself this afternoon," I said, handing back the scroll. "Of course," he said, his smile tight. "But first you have the public audience. The hall of judgment awaits. The people cry out for the wisdom of the goddess." Ah, the public audience, my favorite and most exhausting duty. It is where I sit upon the high throne and resolve the disputes of the city. It is theater, yes, but it is also justice. I dismissed him and finished my dressing. I chose the heaviest wig, the one braided with gold wires, and a mantle of leopard skin over my shoulders, the symbol of high priestess. I needed to look formidable today. The journey from my private chambers to the Hall of Judgment took us through the heart of the palace complex. I rode in a litter carried by 8 Nubian guards, their skin oiled and gleaming. We passed through courtyards filled with fountains that sprayed perfumed water, past statues of my ancestors who looked down with stone eyes. The walls were painted with scenes of the afterlife, of the gods weighing the hearts of men against the feather of truth. When we arrived at the Hall of Judgment, the noise was deafening. It was a cavernous space, open to the sky, supported by massive columns painted in red and blue. The air smelled of unwashed bodies, garlic, dust, and anxiety. Hundreds of people were gathered, merchants, farmers, slaves, priests, all shouting, pleading, waiting. I ascended the dais to the golden throne. It was raised high, so my feet did not touch the ground. Beside me stood the guards, their spears tipped with silver. And to my right, always hovering, was Harkhuf, holding the staff of office. For 2 hours, I listened. I settled a dispute over a boundary line between 2 wheat farmers. I ordered a merchant to pay a fine for selling watered-down wine. I granted a widow a pension from the royal granary. I was fair. I was generous. I gave away bags of gold coins to those who had been wronged, watching their faces crumble in gratitude. I love that feeling, the power to change a life with a flick of my wrist. Then the guards dragged in the boy. This was the moment the earth shifted, though no one else heard the rumble. "Next case," shouted the herald. 2 large guards threw a small figure onto the marble floor at the foot of the dais. He hit the stone with a thud that made me wince, but he did not cry out. He scrambled to his knees, dusting off his rags. He was a child of the streets, perhaps 10 or 11 years old. His tunic was nothing but a patchwork of gray scraps, stained with mud and charcoal. His hair was matted, his feet bare and calloused. He smelled of the harbor, of fish guts and stagnant water. "What is this?" I asked, my voice echoing off the columns. "Why do you bring a child before the Pharaoh in chains?" A fat merchant stepped forward, his face red with rage. He was dressed in expensive yellow wool, dripping with gaudy gold chains that lacked any artistic refinement. "Majesty, this rat is a thief," the merchant bellowed, pointing a sausage-like finger at the boy. "I caught him in my stall in the Rhakotis district. He stole a pomegranate, and when I tried to cane him, he bit me. Look!" He showed a small red mark on his hand. I looked at the boy. He was not looking at the floor, as most accused do. He was looking at the ceiling, studying the painted stars. "Is this true?" I asked the boy. "Did you steal from this man?" The boy slowly lowered his gaze, and that was when our eyes met. They were not the eyes of a child. They were dark, large, and terrifyingly familiar. They were eyes that had seen too much wine, too much sorrow, and too much music. They were eyes that held a heavy, drooping sadness, framed by long lashes. He did not tremble. He stood up, shaking off the guard's hand. He stood with a posture that was absurd for a beggar, shoulders back, chin lifted, one foot slightly forward. It was a stance of command. "I did not steal," the boy said. His voice was raspy but clear. "I merely took what was owed." The court gasped. Harkhuf stepped forward, his lizard eyes narrowing. "Insolence! You speak to the Queen of Kings, boy. Kneel, or I will have your tongue cut out." The boy looked at Harkhuf, and then he did something that stopped my heart. He let out a short, dismissive huff of air through his nose, a specific sound of annoyance, a snort of derision. My father used to make that exact sound. Ptolemy Auletes, the flute player. My father was a complicated man. He was weak in politics but strong in passion. He loved arts, he loved luxury, and he hated bureaucrats. When a treasurer would bore him with numbers, he would make that huff, a sound that said, "You are boring me, you little insect." "He owes you?" I asked, leaning forward, my gold jewelry clinking. "Explain yourself, child. A merchant owes a beggar?" "He is no merchant," the boy said, pointing at the fat man. "He cheats the scales. I watched him. He puts his thumb on the weight when he sells grain to the widows. He charges them for a kilo and gives them half. I took the pomegranate as a tax on his corruption. It is the law of Ma'at. Balance must be restored." The merchant turned purple. "Lies! Filthy street lies!" "Silence," I commanded. The merchant froze. I looked at the boy again. "You speak of Ma'at? You speak of tax? Who taught you these words?" "No one taught me," the boy said, sounding bored. He looked around the Hall of Judgment, his eyes criticizing the architecture. "Though I must say the acoustics in here have improved since the renovations. The echo is less muddy." My grip tightened on the armrest of my throne. My father had commissioned the renovations of this hall 10 years ago. He had been obsessed with the acoustics because he wanted to play his flute here. No one but the architects and the royal family knew that was the reason. Harkhuf whispered in my ear, his breath smelling of onions. "Majesty, he is a lunatic and a thief. The law is clear. For theft he loses a hand. Let us be done with this vermin. I have the legion commanders waiting for you." "No," I said softly. "Majesty?" There is something strange about this boy. I stood up. I descended the stairs of the dais, the gold coins sewn into my dress, chiming like bells. The guards tensed, ready to protect me, but I waved them back. I walked until I was standing right in front of the filthy child. Up close, he smelled terrible, but beneath the dirt his bone structure was refined. High cheekbones, a hooked nose, the Ptolemaic nose. "What is your name?" I asked him. The boy looked at me. For a moment his arrogance vanished, replaced by a profound, heartbreaking affection. He looked at me as if I were the child and he were the parent. "They call me Tayo on the streets," he said. "It means born to be happy, a cruel joke considering my menu consists of rats and stolen fruit." He smiled. It was a crooked smile. My father had a crooked smile, the result of a jaw injury from falling off a horse in his youth. "Tayo," I repeated. "You claim this man cheats the scales?" "Test him," Tayo said. "Check his weights. The bronze weight he uses for grain, it is hollow. He filled the center with wax to make it lighter." I turned to the guards. "Seize the merchant's scales. Bring the weights to me, now." The merchant went pale. He tried to back away, but the guards grabbed him. They brought the leather bag of weights to me. I took the bronze weight, a standard deben. It felt light, too light. I handed it to a guard. "Cut it open." The guard drew his dagger and sliced into the soft bronze. Sure enough, the core was white wax. The crowd erupted in shouts of anger. The merchant fell to his knees, weeping. "Take him away," I said, my voice cold. "He will pay back every widow he cheated tenfold, and then banish him from the city." I turned back to the boy, Tayo. He was nodding, satisfied. He dusted his hands off as if he had just finished a day's work. "Well done, Cleopatra," he said. Not Your Majesty, not Queen. He called me Cleopatra. Harkhuf exploded. "You dare use her name? You insolent little— Guards, seize him. He is to be flogged for disrespect." "Wait," I shouted. But Harkhuf was already signaling the guards. He wanted this boy gone. Why? Was it just snoggery? Or did Harkhuf see what I saw? Did he recognize the intelligence in those eyes? A smart street urchin is a danger to a corrupt treasurer. If this boy knew about the merchant's weights, what else did he know? "The boy is under my protection," I declared, my voice ringing out with the full authority of the Pharaoh. "He has served the crown by exposing a thief. He will not be flogged." Harkhuf stiffened. "Majesty, you cannot bring a street rat into the palace. It is against protocol. The disease, the lice—" "I have enough gold to buy all the soap in Syria, Harkhuf," I snapped. "I think we can manage a bath." I looked at Tayo. "You will come with me. You have a sharp eye. I have need of sharp eyes." Tayo looked at Harkhuf, then at me. He leaned in, whispering so only I could hear. "Watch the one with the lizard eyes, little one," he whispered. "He pockets the silver when he thinks the gods aren't looking. He used to steal wine from the royal cellar." My blood ran cold. Little one. Only one person ever called me little one. "Come," I said, my voice trembling slightly. As we walked back toward the palace, the boy beside me in his rags and me in my gold, I felt the minor challenge, the merchant's theft, had been solved, but a much larger, darker mystery had just opened its jaws. I looked at the boy's profile. He was humming. It was a low, strange tune, a tune written for a flute, a tune that had not been played in the palace since the day my father died. I ordered the boy to be taken to the onyx chamber. It is a room I rarely use, reserved for visiting dignitaries, walled entirely in black stone that shines like a beetle's shell, veined with gold. I wanted to intimidate him. I wanted to see if the grandeur of the Ptolemies would make him cower. It did not. While my handmaidens prepared the bath, a sunken tub hewn from a single block of alabaster, filled with steaming water and scented with jasmine, Tayo stood in the center of the room, hands on his hips, criticizing the upholstery. "These cushions," he said, poking a pillow covered in Babylonian silk, "they are too soft. A man needs support for his back. And why is the room so dark? It feels like a tomb. I spent enough time in tombs. I prefer the sunlight." I stood by the doorway, my arms crossed, the heavy gold bracelets on my wrists clanking together. "You are a beggar boy who was sleeping in the mud an hour ago, and you complain about royal silk." He turned to me, and for a split second I saw the flash of irritation my father used to get when I questioned his music taste. "Taste is not determined by wealth, Cleopatra. It is innate. This room lacks harmony." "Get in the bath," I ordered. The bathing process was a battle. My handmaidens, girls trained to serve the most powerful women in the world, were scandalized. Tayo refused to let them scrub him. He grabbed the sponge himself. He complained the water was too hot, then too cold. He demanded the oil of lilies, not the rose oil. "Rose makes me sneeze," he grumbled. I froze. My father had been allergic to roses. He would break out in hives if a bouquet was brought within 10 feet of him. I dismissed the maids. "Leave us. I will attend to him." They bowed and fled, terrified of my mood. I was alone with this strange, skinny child who was now scrubbing years of Alexandrian grime from his skin. As the dirt washed away, I saw the scars. Not the scars of a king, but the scars of the street. Bite marks from dogs, burns from sleeping too close to alley fires, the raised welts of whips. It broke my heart. My father, who had bathed in milk and honey, now wore a body map of suffering. "Who are you really?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I sat on the edge of the tub, heedless of the water splashing onto my expensive robes. He stopped scrubbing. He looked at his own small, thin hands. "I told you, I am Tayo. I woke up in an alley 4 years ago. I had no memory of how I got there. I only knew that I was hungry, and I knew things. I knew the taste of wine I had never drunk. I knew the layout of this talus, though I had never stepped foot inside, and I knew you." He looked up at me, water dripping from his matted hair. "You look tired, little one. You are wearing the heavy crown again. I told you the light one is better for your neck." I gasped, my hand flying to my throat. The light crown was a simple gold circlet my father had commissioned for me when I was 18, because I complained the ceremonial headdress gave me migraines. No one else knew that name for it. "Prove it," I whispered. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "If you are him, tell me something only he would know." Tayo sighed, sinking lower into the water. "In the garden, beneath the great statue of Horus, there is a loose stone in the pavement. Underneath it, I hid a small box. Inside is the reed for my favorite flute. I broke it the day the Romans arrived, out of frustration. I buried it because I couldn't bear to throw it away." I stood up so fast my chair tipped over. "Stay here." I ran. I did not walk with the grace of a queen. I ran through the corridors, past the startled guards, my robes flying behind me. I burst into the royal gardens, the heat of the midday sun hitting my face. I found the statue of Horus. I fell to my knees in the dirt, me, the Queen of Egypt, digging with my bare hands, breaking my manicured nails. I found the loose stone. I pried it up, and there, nestled in the damp earth, was a small cedar box. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely open the latch. Inside lay a splintered piece of reed, the mouthpiece of a flute. I sat there in the dirt, clutching the broken wood to my chest, and I wept. I wept for the father I had buried. I wept for the madness that was overtaking me, and I wept with a terrifying hope. When I returned to the onyx chamber, Tayo was dressed. He had found a clean tunic of white linen, too big for him, swallowed by the fabric, and he was eating a bowl of grapes with the voracious speed of a starving animal. But he held the grape, elegantly, pinky finger extended. I walked in and placed the broken reed on the table. He looked at it, then at me. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just nodded. "You should fix the latch on that box, it was rusting." "Father?" I whispered. He paused, a grape halfway to his mouth. "Do not call me that, not here. The walls have ears and Harkhuf has spies in the plaster." He swallowed the grape. "We have a problem, Cleopatra, a bigger problem than a cheating merchant." "Harkhuf," I said, drying my eyes. "He is stealing from the treasury." "He is not just stealing," Teo said, his voice dropping to a low, serious tone that sounded bizarre coming from a child. "He is funding an army. I heard things in the lower city. Mercenaries from Nubia are gathering in the desert. They are paid in Ptolemaic gold, freshly minted." "But I control the mint," I argued. "Do you, or does Harkhuf control the keys?" Just then there was a knock at the door. We both jumped. "Enter," I commanded, composing myself. I sat on a chair, trying to look regal, while Teo sat on the floor playing with a gold coin he had found. It was a servant bearing a silver tray. "Compliments of the High Steward Harkhuf, Your Majesty. He sends this wine from his private cellar to soothe your nerves after the disturbance in court today." The servant poured 2 goblets of deep red wine. The aroma filled the room, sweet, heavy, spiced. "Leave us," I said. The servant bowed and left. I reached for the goblet. I was parched, and Harkhuf's wine was known to be excellent. "Don't touch it," Teo snapped. He scrambled up from the floor and slapped the goblet out of my hand. The wine splashed across the white marble floor, staining it like blood. "What are you doing?" I cried. "That is a vintage from—" "Smell it," he commanded, pointed to the puddle. "Don't smell the spices, smell the sugar." I leaned down. Amid the cinnamon and honey, there was a faint, sickly sweet undercurrent, like rotting almonds. "Cyanide?" I whispered. "Distilled from peach pits," Teo said grimly. "An old trick. I used to use it to poison rats in the grain silos. Harkhuf isn't trying to soothe your nerves, Cleopatra. He is trying to clear the throne before the eclipse." "The eclipse?" I looked at him. "The solar eclipse is in 2 days. The priests say it is a sign of Ra's anger." "It is a sign of cover," Teo said. "Harkhuf plans to strike when the sun goes dark. He knows the people will be terrified. He will claim the gods have struck you down for your incompetence. He will present himself as the savior who brings the light back." I sank into my chair. The reality of my situation crashed down on me. I was the richest woman in the world, yet I could not drink the wine in my own palace. My father was a street urchin. My treasurer was an assassin. "We cannot arrest him," I said, thinking tactically, "not without proof. If I arrest him now, his mercenaries will attack. The people love him because he lies to them. I need to prove his treason publicly." Teo began to pace. He looked ridiculous in the oversized tunic, tripping over the hem, but his mind was sharp. "The proof is in the books, the real books. Harkhuf is obsessive. He writes everything down. He wouldn't destroy the records of his theft. He's too proud of his own cleverness." "He keeps the ledgers in the treasury," I said. "It is guarded by his personal elite guard. Even I cannot enter without his seal." "Not the treasury," Teo said, tapping his temple. "The old library, the one your grandfather built, the one that was sealed off." "That ruin?" I scoffed. "It's filled with dust and scorpions." "And a secret compartment in the floor of the astronomy wing," Teo said. "I built it, or he built it, to hide love letters from a mistress." "Harkhuf must have found it. It's the perfect place. No guards, just ghosts." "We have to go there," I said, standing up. "Tonight." "Tonight," Teo agreed. "But we cannot go as queen and beggar. We must go as shadows." He walked over to my wardrobe, a massive chest of cedar wood inlaid with ivory. He threw it open and began rummaging through my silks. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Finding us a disguise," he said, pulling out a dark, hooded cloak I used for incognito trips to the temple. "And something else." He dug deeper, to the bottom of the chest, and pulled out a long, slender case of polished ebony. My breath caught in my throat. It was his flute, the real one, the one made of solid gold and silver, gifted to him by the king of Cyprus. He opened the case. The instrument gleamed in the dim light. He put it to his lips, without the reed, just to feel the metal. He closed his eyes, and a look of pure peace washed over his tortured young face. "I missed you," he whispered to the flute. Then he looked at me, his eyes hard again. "We go at midnight. But Cleopatra, if we are caught, I cannot protect you. I am just a boy. You have to be the warrior." "I am the blood of Alexander," I said, drawing myself up to my full height. "I do not fear the dark." "Good," Tayo said, "because where we are going, the dark is the least of our worries." As night fell over Alexandria, the palace grew quiet, but the silence was deceptive. I could feel the eyes of Harkhuf's spies in every shadow. We were two against an empire, a queen and a ghost child armed with nothing but a flute and a terrible secret. I wrapped the dark cloak around me, hiding the glitter of my gold. I took a dagger from the wall, a ceremonial blade, but sharp enough to cut a throat. "Are you ready?" I asked. Tayo nodded. He looked small, fragile, but when he moved toward the secret door behind the tapestry, he moved with the swagger of a king. "Follow me, little one," he said. "Let's go take back our kingdom." The old library was not like the great library that stands today, bright with scholars and the smell of fresh ink. The old library was a carcass. It was a cavernous hall of stone, abandoned 3 generations ago, filled with the dust of centuries and the dry, rustling sound of nesting bats. We entered through a servant's passage, a narrow tunnel that smelled of damp earth and rot. I, who was used to walking on rose petals, had to crawl on my hands and knees through the grime. My golden cloak snagged on rough stones, tearing the expensive embroidery. I did not care. My heart was pounding a rhythm of pure terror against my ribs. Tayo moved differently. In the palace, he was a clumsy boy in an oversized tunic, tripping over the hem, but here in the dark, he was a predator. He knew every turn, every loose brick. "Careful here, Cleopatra," he whispered, his voice echoing softly. "There is a drop. I broke my ankle here when I was 12, running from my tutors." He held out a hand to help me. His hand was small, rough, and dirty, but the grip was iron. It was the grip of a man who had held the reins of chariots. We emerged into the main rotunda of the old library. Moonlight filtered through cracks in the high dome, illuminating towering shelves that stood like skeletal ribs. Most of the scrolls were gone, moved to the new wing, but the smell of ancient papyrus, a scent like vanilla and dry leaves, lingered. "The astronomy wing," Tayo said, pointing to a dark archway. "That is where I kept the private accounts, under the mosaic of the constellation Orion." We ran. The sound of our sandals slapping against the stone floor seemed deafening in the silence. We reached the astronomy wing. The floor was a masterpiece of tiles, depicting the night sky. "There," Tayo said, pointing to the hunter's belt of Orion. "The middle star. Press it." I knelt. The tile was sapphire, cold to the touch. I pressed down with all my weight. Nothing happened. "It's stuck," I hissed. "Years of dirt." "Let me," Tayo said. He pulled a small metal tool from his sash, a lockpick he likely stole on the streets. He wedged it in the groove and levered it. With a groan of grinding stone, the tile popped up. Beneath it was a hollow space. I reached in. My fingers brushed against leather. "I have it," I gasped. I pulled out a heavy leather-bound ledger. It was wrapped in oilcloth to protect it from moisture. I tore the wrapping open. I opened the book. Even in the dim moonlight, the numbers were damning. Payment to General Achilles, 100 talents of gold. Payment to the Nubian mercenaries, 200 talents. Purchase of poison, 50 drachmas. He wrote it all down, I whispered, shaking my head. The arrogance! He thought he was untouchable, Tayo said grimly. Now we have him. We take this to the high priest. He will have to act. We did it, I said, a smile breaking across my face. I clutched the book to my chest as if it were my own child. We saved Egypt. And then the torches flared. Light, sudden and blinding, flooded the room. I screamed, shielding my eyes. Shadows stretched long and distorted against the walls. From the darkness of the archways, soldiers emerged. Not just any soldiers. These were the elite palace guard, the crimson-cloaked warriors who were sworn to protect the pharaoh. But their swords were drawn, and they were pointed at me. And stepping out from behind them, slow and clapping his hands, was Harkhuf. "Bravo," he crooned. His voice was smooth, like oil pouring over gravel. A touching performance. The Queen and the Beggar. It sounds like a bad play at the theater. I clutched the ledger tighter. I have the proof, Harkhuf. I have your own handwriting. Treason. You are paying mercenaries to invade your own country. Harkhuf laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. My dear child, do you think I let you walk out of the palace unseen? Do you think I didn't know about the secret passage? I watched you crawl in the dirt. I let you find the book. It saves me the trouble of digging it up myself. He snapped his fingers. Take it from her. A guard stepped forward. He was a mountain of muscle and bronze armor. Stand back, I commanded, channeling every ounce of royal authority I possessed. I am Cleopatra the 7th Philopater. To touch me is death. The guard hesitated. The divine authority of the pharaoh is a powerful thing. She is a traitor, Harkhuf shouted, losing his composure. She conspires with street rats to sell Egypt to Rome. The book she holds is a forgery. Seize her, or I will have your heads. The guard lunged. He ripped the book from my hands. I stumbled back, falling against a stone pillar. Tayo stood in front of me, his small arms spread wide to shield me. You cannot kill us, Tayo said. His voice was not loud, but it carried a strange resonance. Not today. Harkhuf sneered. And why is that, boy? Are you going to throw a pomegranate at me? Because, Tayo said, reaching into his tunic. He is listening. He pulled out the golden flute. Harkhuf paused. He recognized the instrument. That belongs to the late king. You stole it from the tomb. I did not steal it, Tayo said. I earned it. He lifted the flute to his lips. Kill him, Harkhuf shrieked. Don't let him play. But the guards were confused. A beggar playing a royal instrument? The sheer audacity made them pause for a fraction of a second. And in that second, Tayo played. It was not a song, it was a signal. It was 3 sharp, piercing notes, followed by a trill that sounded like a falcon screeching. Tweet, 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 trill! The captain of the guard, a gray-bearded veteran named Captain Menes, froze. His eyes went wide. He dropped his shield. Clang! That sound, Menes whispered. That is the call of the immortals. Silence, Harkhuf yelled. Kill them! Tayo lowered the flute. He looked directly at Captain Menes. Menes, Tayo said. His voice changed. It dropped an octave, imitating the cadence of an older man. Do you remember the Battle of Ashkelon? Do you remember who pulled the arrow from your shoulder when the surgeon was too drunk to do it? Menes turned pale. He stepped forward, his sword trembling. King Ptolemy? he whispered, "but you are dead." "The flesh dies," Tayo said, stepping forward. The rags seemed to vanish from everyone's sight. All they saw was the posture, the tilt of the head, the fire in the eyes. "The spirit remains. I told you, Menes, I told you on my deathbed, I will watch over Egypt." Harkhuf looked around frantically. The soldiers were lowering their weapons. They were superstitious men. They believed in the Ka, the Ba, the soul's journey. "It is a trick," Harkhuf screamed. "Ventriloquism, sorcery. He is a demon." "Look to the sky," Tayo commanded, pointing up at the crack in the dome. We all looked up. The moon had moved. It was sliding over the face of the sun. The solar eclipse. It was happening now. The light in the room began to die. The beam of sunlight that illuminated the dust motes turned an eerie blood-red color, then faded to twilight. A cold wind rushed through the library. Ra turns his face from the traitor. The sun dies because a fief holds the sword. Panic erupted. The soldiers fell to their knees. In ancient Egypt, an eclipse was the ultimate omen of doom. It meant the cosmic order was broken. "Save us!" a soldier cried. "The queen!" Tayo pointed at me. "Only the queen can bring back the light. She is the daughter of Isis. Pledge your loyalty to her, and the sun will return." It was the turning point. The impossible turn. The proof of the ledger was gone, but the proof of the cosmos was here. Captain Menes turned to Harkhuf. His face was hard as stone. "You have angered the gods, steward," Menes said. No, I pay your wages." Harkhuf backed away. "Gold does not buy the sun," Menes growled. "Seize him," I shouted, my voice cracking with the release of tension. "Seize the traitor Harkhuf." The 12 guards turned as one. They were no longer mercenaries. They were Egyptians, terrified of the dark and desperate for salvation. They descended on Harkhuf like a pack of lions. He screamed as they dragged him down. He dropped his sword. I walked forward. I picked up the sword, the ruby-encrusted blade he had meant for my heart. I stood over him. The room was almost pitch black now, lit only by the sputtering torches. "The ledger is ash," I said to him, my voice trembling with rage, "but my memory is not." Tayo walked up beside me. He placed a hand on my arm. "Wait," he said softly. "Look." He pointed to the ceiling. The moon was continuing its path. A sliver of blinding, diamond-bright sun emerged from behind the shadow. A ray of light shot down, hitting the gold of my cloak, making me glow in the darkness. "Behold!" Tayo shouted to the prostrate soldiers. "Ra returns! The queen is blessed!" "Hail, Cleopatra!" Captain Menes shouted, slamming his fist against his chest. "Hail, Cleopatra!" the soldiers roared. I looked at the boy. My father. He was panting, exhausted, leaning on the flute for support. He gave me a small, crooked wink. The macro challenge was solved, not by law, but by awe. Harkhuf was bound in chains. The army was mine again. But as the adrenaline faded, I looked at Tayo. He looked paler than usual. The strain of the performance, the channeling of the old memories, it had taken a toll on his frail, malnourished body. He swayed. "Father?" I whispered. He collapsed into my arms, small and light as a bird. The days that followed the eclipse were some of the strangest of my life. Alexandria returned to its rhythm. The markets bustled, the ships sailed, and the Nile flooded its banks with the precision of a clockwork god. But inside the palace, everything had changed. Harkhuf was gone. I did not make a spectacle of his end. I am not a butcher, I am a queen. He was simply found in his cell the next morning, a goblet of his own peach pit wine by his side, a poetic end for a man who loved poison so much. His name was struck from the obelisks, his face chipped away from the reliefs. It was as if he never existed. But the boy remained. For 3 days, Tayo slept in my own chambers, in a bed large enough for 10 men, buried under piles of blankets woven from pure vicuna wool. I sat by his side, ignoring the summons of my generals, ignoring the piles of correspondence from Rome. I watched his chest rise and fall. I watched the shadows of the palm leaves dance across his sleeping face. When he finally opened his eyes, the heavy, ancient weight was gone from them. He looked young. He looked like a 10-year-old boy who had just had the best sleep of his life. "Is there any food?" he asked, his voice cracking. "I could eat a hippopotamus." I laughed. It was a sound I hadn't made in years, a true, unburdened laugh. I ordered a feast. We sat on the balcony, overlooking the harbor, eating roasted duck with figs and honey cakes. He didn't speak of the old library. He didn't speak of the flute. It was as if the spirit of the Pharaoh had retreated deep inside him, resting, leaving the boy to just be a boy. But every now and then I would catch him looking at a map of the Mediterranean, his eyes narrowing with a strategic brilliance that terrified me. I appointed him as my royal cupbearer, a humble title, but one that allowed him to be by my side at all times without raising suspicion. The court whispers, of course. They say I have adopted a street rat out of madness. They say I am eccentric. Let them talk. They do not know that the street rat corrects my Greek grammar and advises me on the fluctuating price of grain in Syria. I walked to the railing of the balcony and looked out over my city. The sun was setting, turning the white limestone of Alexandria into liquid gold. I touched the heavy necklace around my throat, rubies the size of pigeon eggs. I have always loved wealth. I have always believed that gold was the only security in this world. But as I looked back at Tayo, who was currently trying to juggle 3 apples and failing miserably, I realized the truth. My father told me once, long ago, that a pharaoh is never truly alone. The blood of the gods flows through us, binding us across time. I thought it was just a story to help me sleep, but now I know. The challenge of Harkhuf is over. But as I look towards the sea, towards the north, I see storm clouds gathering. Rome is hungry, Julius Caesar is marching, the world is changing, and the wolves are circling Egypt. I am Cleopatra. I am the Queen of Kings. I have the wealth of the world in my vaults. But my greatest weapon is not my gold, it is not my armies. It is the small, dirty-faced boy sitting on my silk cushions, humming a tune that has been forgotten by everyone else on earth. The game is just beginning, my friends, and thanks to a beggar, the house of Ptolemy is never been stronger. Until the next time the Nile rises, remember this: gold can be stolen, kingdoms can fall, but love? Love is the only thing that conquers death. Farewell.